Greetings, Guardians, my name is Bife here. Okay, so it's time that we unraveled one of the weirdest but definitely most important bits of the lore for the whole season. This is actually going to be first in a 3-part series of videos that is ultimately going to lead us towards the center of the story of the season. It revolves around the Witness, the Leviathan, Callus, the Pyramid on Luna, and at the heart of it all we have this stuff. The Egregore. These scary spores, this freaky fungus, this malicious mold, call it what you will, it's actually got a huge role in all of the story this season, and in order to truly understand what's going on, we're going to need to break that down and examine that in depth. So, Egregore, what is it? Well, it's a fungus that flourishes around death. We first found it in the Drifter's ship, where he's been growing some of the stuff, and has been doing so for a really considerably long time, actually. Then we found more of it infesting the Glycon Volatus, the ship from the Presage mission. Finally, we ventured to the Leviathan and bam, it's literally everywhere. You can't throw a rock without hitting some of the stuff. The place looks more like a fungal planet than anything else, and that perhaps shouldn't be too surprising, and I'll be going into why a little bit later. First of all, though, I wanted to take a look at some of the less accessible contemporary details regarding Egregore so we can get a better understanding of what it is. In particular, we have the collector's edition of Witch Queen, which has a small exploration of the Glycon Volatus listed in the notes of Ikora Rey. Here she says several things about the nature of Egregore, and how the spores have a deep link to the power of the darkness and its link to memory. The relevant notations read as follows. Access restricted. Decryption key 2CA9SXUO2C. Agents Ikora 06. Subject: Personal examination of the Glycon Volatus derelict. 1. As the site of a numinous encounter with the darkness, the Glycon Volatus derelict deserved my direct inspection. I will record here only what I can add to past reports. 2. The sarcophilous growths overrunning the ship are a clever trick, aren't they? To pass the densest thickets, you must link with them. Engineered to remind one of the need to use darkness to fight darkness. When I joined that link, I felt what others have reported, a collective haunting, the presence of all those who were devoured by the ship. 3. Why is it that so many places touched by darkness carry a sense of memory? The nightmares we fought on the moon, these haunted growths, the Taken who are the product of a literal taking of the will, even the unveiling missives delivered in a clear and casual first person, the common element of identity, memory, and consciousness. While the light is impersonal and silent, it is everywhere, and in all things, but invisibly so. Silently so. Why should memory and identity belong to the darkness? Pujari claimed that it was important to understand why Guardians return without an identity. Do we understand why? If memory and identity belong to the darkness, does darkness itself have an identity? A personality? A voice? Is this voice the same as the darkness itself? 4. Savathun in her Osiris mask personally oversaw the first expedition to the Glycon Volatus. What did she gain? Was she confirming the success of a game against Callus? An assassination by proxy? Listen to the comments she made. These spores are harmonizing with a nearby concentration of darkness. How casually she speaks of the darkness, like it is another substance to gather and pump. Did she mean to trick us into treating darkness instrumentally? Just fluid, just a black ooze of evil? Corruption depicted as something you could ladle with a spoon? Would a non-human intelligence recognize fungus and fluid as signs of true evil? Or are these anthropomorphic symbols, tapping into our fear of rot? If they are symbols, what are they meant to communicate? 5. True evil feels like Nazino Island. I visited it years ago, searching for a lost friend. The earth seemed cold and dry and thick. When it rained, there was this smell. A Firkus wouldn't speak above a whisper. The river Ob had dried and withdrawn, so the island has become a mountain in a sea of forest. But something other than trees grows here. I would swear it. We found a place where lightning had struck more than once, and I dug. Found human bones. Fibula and tibula and long femurs, all with knife marks, scraped clean of meat. We do not know exactly what happened on Nazino, but Ophi whispered to me what he felt. A faceless machine, grinding over innocent life, lubricated by neglect and indifferent compliance, indifferent to the suffering it caused, and like a vast slug, it left a stain behind. But is what I felt human evil or universal evil? Is there a difference? Is there a malice which all species of all psychologies could agree upon? The mark of suffering lingered on Nazino Island. It lingers on the Glycon Volatus. What makes evil stain a place? By what media? In what ink or bile is that evil written? Which is easier to remember, happiness or suffering? Which stains deeper? On the moon, we met only nightmares. Do only nightmares linger? Maybe the answer is right beside me. We are all haunted by our own good ghost, aren't we? 6. The documents found aboard Glycon Volatus attest to Callus's belief in a presence on the far side of his contact ritual, an observer. Is there a wielder of darkness as we are wielders of light? One or many? When Oryx called the darkness down into an ogre to speak with him, was this the voice that answered? Mara says there is a distinction between darkness and its chief exponent. So, we've learned a few things about the spores from those entries, but chief amongst them, I think, is that the spores can be linked to in order to pass through the deepest thickets, and they seem to somehow hold a sense of memory or even identity, something that is integral to understand the darkness. It's also clear that they resonate with darkness. It's made further clear that by the word sarcophilus that these spores are fond of growing out of flesh, dead flesh in particular, it would seem. For those wondering about the Nazino Island reference, yeah, not going to go over that in full video depth here because it's grueling and horrifying. Suffice to say, from what you heard, it's a place where bad things happened. It was essentially a political prisoner camp in the Soviet Union, and it saw acts of total barbarity. The idea was that people would be left on this island, and, well, there were not enough supplies to go around. Barbarism and cannibalism are the smallest of evils that might have gone on there, and that should give you an idea of the true depth of human suffering that went on Nazino Island. So yeah, we're not going to talk about more of that, we're going to move on. Having learned all these new details about Egregore, we can almost start to look at it as though it's a separate entity unto itself. But this sense of self is something that's only become more apparent with the arrival of the Leviathan near the moon. The Leviathan is now infested with Egregore, and in the process of gathering intelligence about the growths, we were able to make a series of important discoveries. This is where our investigation takes us next, the Behold patrols in particular. You can acquire these from the corrupted frames that Callus has brought into his service, which you can find all over the vessel. If they have a patrol icon above their head, yeah, there's a Behold patrol there. They will direct you to points on the ship where Callus will reach out and communicate with us about the various happenings on board. There are quite a lot of these audio files that pertain to Egregore and teach us something about it, so let's listen to all of them and see what we can do to discern some more about it.
There's spores in the air here. Same kind we'd seen aboard Callus's research vessel Glycon. They don't seem to be harmful.
Aspirating the Egregore spores allows them to take root in your body. While they are symbiotic, they are also short-lived. But for a time, they join your consciousness to that of the mycelial network and other minds that would witness you.
This first clip here confirms that the spores are indeed somewhat alive in a sense. The mycelial network spans the whole host of spores and allows other minds to witness you. This last bit has me worried, as the phrase of being witnessed in Destiny lore nowadays almost always implies that the witness itself is looking to you and observing you directly. And suddenly, when you think about it, all of that makes a ton of sense. Let me explain why. When Callus was aboard the Glycon and was experimenting with the Crown of Sorrows, after each attempt, even if he was unsuccessful, the crown would start to visibly grow Egregore. The gold would tarnish and turn to rust, and would start growing these nasty spores. We know this thanks to the Captain's Log lorebook, a small excerpt from which reads, Callus's tomb carriage overlooks the viewing chamber once again. All his forms stand around a garish mass of metal and apprehension, the crown, as he called it. Fewer crew members attend this communion after so many failed attempts. Gilly and I stand above a host of chattering carcasses. Plugs and cables run from them into the flesh of an ether-logged scorn beneath an ugly crown. The gold from the castellum is flush with tarnish, stemming from some kind of lichen that has burrowed its way into the precious metal adornments since the last communion attempt. "I thought gold doesn't stain," I say to Gilly. "It's an expression of purity." "Like the light?" I grunt. Gilly fixates on the crown, on the viewing window, and the depth beyond. After the unsuccessful first few communions with the witness, the crown had begun to grow egregore spores around it. That's what this lichen is. This all progressed up until the point at which the ceremony was successful and the glycan was invaded by the witness's influence. When that happened, Callus was abducted, the Scorn were resurrected continuously, the Cabal on board began to be slaughtered, and the egregore bloomed from their corpses, being let in through the crown and through the communion. And therefore it makes perfect sense that the witness is able to see through this egregore. It just needed to establish the proper connection, and through the combination of various Scorn bodies and the Crown of Sorrow and its ability to reach beyond and pull consciousness in different directions, yeah, it was possible. Next up we have this clip, which further tells us that something similar occurred on the Leviathan.
This ship was once so full of a specific kind of life, vascular and wet, flesh, meat, bone. Now, new life flourishes in the dark. My menagerie became a feeding trough for such splendor, lights of which are both beautiful and obscene.
The plants we're seeing here appear to be concentrated through those doors. Maybe it's where they started?
Callus needed death to fuel the growth of the egregore, but why did he need it to grow? This is actually a part of what our second video is to be about. But for now, this next clip can offer at least the first half of an answer to this query.
Weird readings here. The power conduits below this spot have a reversed flow. The energy is behaving strangely. I don't know how to describe it.
The Leviathan is growing, changing, transforming. You are witnessing the death of one state of being and the beginning of another. Terrible and beautiful new life will bloom from its carcass.
The purpose of that new life that is blooming, as well as the state of the Leviathan, Callus and the Lumen Pyramids, are all the topics that are best left to another video in this series, so we're going to leave it for the time being though. Next, we have this clip taken from the pleasure gardens of the derelict Leviathan. It'll give us a direct explanation of the origins of the spores.
I have become quite attached to this fungus since I discovered it on a world far from yours. It grew in great forests across the planet. Even here, infinitely far from where the first spore was harvested, they remain connected. Darkness is many things, Guardian. Many things.
I'm sure Eris might find this information insightful, but I'm a bit nervous about intelligent fungus that can think across the void of space.
So this tells us that the mycelial network of the egregore can not only reach across time and space, but also it has overrun at least one planet out there entirely. Maybe this is the planet of their origin, maybe not. But either way, the death and decay of such a place must be sustained somehow, but it's not clear how. Great suffering must exist in that place. And what's more, the network of spores is confirmed to be able to connect to consciousness across the gaps of space. Furthermore, it's going to be confirmed to reach more than just that. It's going to reach across dimension, as we'll hear in a clip coming forward. This further hints to the idea that the Witness might well be able to use it to spy on us if it's interfaced with. The means by which Callus was able to make the fungi grow so quickly is explained in a short note here.
Do you know these fungi are drawn to the unique psychological phenomenon of death, the moment of true terror before life ends? The death of sentient beings fosters the growth of these fungi. Normally, it takes centuries for them to spread like this, but
Callus sacrificed countless lives to feed his pet project. This is horrifying.
Such advancement was achieved through death, and for the spores to have so completely overrun the Leviathan hints to the idea that Callus must have sacrificed countless loyalists in order to feed the growth of the network here. Finally, I think the last note from Callus is exceptionally important to understand the nature of the mycelial network and how it might link to the realm of the Witness.
they are majestic, are they not? These fungi are not unlike your world's mushrooms in how they live, how they breathe, how they grow. Their mycelial networks do not proliferate in soil, but rather spread like ethereal conduits between dimensions of space.
This sounds a lot like the ley lines in the Dreaming City. Is that possible?
As I stated earlier, and as is implied here, it seems as though the spores are a little bit more like ley lines, and are able to connect, therefore, to the ascendant plane in some manner. But more importantly is this idea that they can link to the place from which the Witness observes us. They don't just travel across vast distances of space, therefore, they can travel between the folds of the universe, and potentially between dimensions. If that is indeed true, then the egregore is far more troubling than I think we ever anticipated it to be. So we have an idea of what's going on with the whole egregore mystery. It's not just fungus that grows from death, it uses death to connect to a network of darkness, a network that allows beings to see across the universe and across dimensions, and more importantly, that link is something tangible that we can tap into, but so too can the Witness. However, we are luckily not the first to explore the properties of egregore. This was something that was also conducted as a series of experiments by Eris Morn and the Drifter. They have been following up on this for the past 3 or 4 months, thanks to the events of Witch Queen. So in the next video, we'll go ahead and we'll see what these two dug up. However, that's all from me for now. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and leave a like, and do note that if you did enjoy the video, you can also go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell next to subscribe for more Destiny lore content. Of course, leave your own thoughts down below. Is there some other part of the lore around the egregore that you have thought about, which maybe doesn't come into this video? I know there's a lot of stuff from the Captain's Log and the lore of the Glycan Volatus that potentially mentions things like egregore. It's exciting to see how this mystery unfolds, and over the next few videos I'm very excited to help unpack that with all of you. But, as per usual, know that your viewership is always quite enough for me, and that in the meantime, my name is Baif. Porodacia Arastra. I'll see you, Starside.